a new definition and new criteria that defines what MSMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, their turnover and their investment should be. We'll decode and unpack all this for you on this edition of Morning Brief at 9. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9 right here on News 9. First up, let's look at the headlines making news this Monday morning. India imposes anti-dumping duty on 5 Chinese products, including aluminium foil and vacuum-insulated flasks, to thwart cheap Chinese imports into India that threaten to kill domestic manufacturers. The government has said it will scrap the 20% export duty on onions imposed in September last year, beginning April 1st. Relief for farmers as no more duty to export onions. The new criteria for the definition of MSMEs has been notified. Initial investment and turnover doubled. New criteria comes into effect on April 1st. And April 1st also becomes the date when cars get costlier after Maruti Suzuki, Hyundai and Tata Motors. Even Mahindra & Mahindra has now decided to jack up prices. Meanwhile, OPENAI and Meta are in talks with Reliance Industries' Geo platform for AI partnerships, as per a report by the information tech website. Fugitive MEHUL CHOKSI and his wife are now in Belgium. Government cries for extradition over the 13,500 crore rupee PNB scam. And there's quite literally a hot protest in Hyderabad as Ola, Uber and Rapido cabs demand fair wages, won't turn on the cars as they ferry passengers. Meanwhile, BLUESMART is not for sale, says co-founder ANMOL JAGGI, quashing reports of an Uber takeover. And a week of solid gains in the Lal Street after months of losses. Market cap of 9 of the 10 most valued firms surges 3 lakh crore rupees. All these stories and more right here on Morning Brief at 9. But first up, let's begin with the top story we're tracking for you this morning. India has imposed anti-dumping duty on 5 Chinese goods, and these include vacuum flasks and aluminium foil during the month so far to guard domestic players from cheap imports from China. The duties were imposed as these 5 products, specifically soft ferrite cores, certain thickness of vacuum insulated flask, aluminium foil, trichloroisocyanuric acid and polyvinyl chloride paste resin were exported to India from China at below normal prices. Now, in a separate notification, the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC, the Department of Revenue said that the duty imposed shall be levied for a period of 5 years on imports of soft ferrite cores, vacuum insulated flask and trichloroisocyanuric acid. The anti-dumping duty of up to $873 per ton was imposed provisionally on aluminium foil for 6 months. Now, the government has imposed the duty in the range of $276 per ton to $986 per ton on import of the acid, a water treatment chemical from not just China but also Japan. Now, soft ferrite cores are used in electric vehicles, chargers as well as telecom devices, and a duty up to 35% was imposed on the cost plus insurance and freight value, referred to as CIF. Similarly, on vacuum insulated flasks, a $1,732 per ton anti-dumping duty was levied. The levy, which ranges from $89 per ton to $707 per ton on polyvinyl chloride paste resin, was slapped on imports from not just China but also Korea, Malaysia, Norway, Taiwan and Thailand for a period of 5 years. Now, these duties are imposed, remember, after recommendations for the same were made by the Commerce Ministry's investigation arm, the Directorate General of Trade Remedies. Anti-dumping probes are conducted by countries to determine whether domestic industries have been hurt because of a surge in cheap imports. Now, as a countermeasure, they impose these duties under the multilateral regime of the Geneva-based World Trade Organization rules. The duty is aimed at ensuring fair trading practices and creating a level playing field for domestic producers vis-a-vis foreign producers and exporters. Now, China is the second largest trading partner for India, with India's trade deficit with China standing at $85 billion for the year 2023-24. And from imports, let's shift gears and move to exports. And there's good news for farmers. India will remove the 20% duty on onion exports starting April 1st. And this as per the government. The move follows nearly 5 months of export restrictions, including minimum export prices and outright bans imposed to ensure domestic availability. Now, this 20% export duty had been in effect since September last year. The government said the decision reflected its commitment to ensuring fair prices for farmers while maintaining affordability for domestic consumers. Now, even though the current mandi prices are above the level during corresponding period of the previous years, there has been a 39% decline in the All India weighted average modal prices. Similarly, the All India average retail price has declined by 10% in the last 1 month. The decision to scrap the export duty comes amid concerns flagged by traders over India losing its market share in the global market, and after modal prices dropped to over 1400 rupees from above 2200 rupees per quintal in the past 3 weeks alone, a reduction of as much as 850 rupees per quintal. The move serves as a relief to India's farmers community that can now be more competitive in the global onion trade. Moving on, the government has notified a significant revision to turnover and investment criteria for classifying MSMEs, and this will take effect from April 1st. Now, enterprises with investments up to 2.5 crore rupees be classified as micro enterprises. This has been up from the previous threshold of 1 crore rupees. Not just investment, even the turnover limit has been revised from 5 crore rupees previously to 10 crore rupees now to classify and categorize companies into the micro category of MSMEs. Now, moving on from micro to small industries, units with investments up to 25 crore rupees will now be classified from 1st April as small enterprises. Now, this is up from the earlier investment of 10 crore rupees. The turnover limit for small enterprises has also been doubled from 50 crore rupees previously to 100 crore rupees starting April 1st. Now, this was the micro and small segment. Let's look at the medium segment. Now, MSMEs with investments up to 125 crore rupees will now be classified as medium enterprises. This has been up from the earlier limit of 50 crore rupees required as investment. Now, for these medium enterprises, the turnover limit has been doubled to 500 crore rupees. It stood at 250 crore rupees earlier. Remember, during her budget speech, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had announced a new classification criteria for MSMEs with investment and turnover limits for the classifications proposed to be increased to 2.5 times and 2 times respectively. Let's quickly try and understand once again what the criteria for investments really is. Let's begin with the micro enterprises. Remember, for the micro enterprises, the limit has been changed. It has been revised upwards from 1 crore rupees to 2.5 crore rupees. Well, time for a short break right here on News 9. We'll be back on the other side of the morning brief at 9. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. The ultimate hunt for India's future football stars. A vision to make India a footballing powerhouse. The journey of young champions begins. The journey kicked off in Delhi with international football legends and young dreamers.
The winner is first born in the mind, and then you have to have an intent to win. Indians want to win.
8 scouting camps, 50,000 registrations, 10,000 selected, only 32 remain. A true search for India's best. From the heart of India's villages to the grand stage of Europe, their journey is nothing short of extraordinary. With Riespo and our partners in Austria, these young talents will train under the best European coaches, preparing for the global stage.
First of all, he scored a goal.
4 of these players will get the golden opportunity to visit VfB Stuttgart, our official partner, and train under Bundesliga standards. An honor like no other, the chance to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The journey of a lifetime begins March 30th.
$2.5 lakh strong legacy and counting. Join the big league with the XUV 700 with celebratory offers up to Rs 75,000. What does it take to be the greatest in the world? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sootyadu TMT Reebok. True inner strength.
For an India that's chasing its dreams, this is the drive of your dreams. Introducing the all-new Skoda Kailak. Own your dream.
Skoda.
Every brand tells a story. And they are the storytellers. The Sutradhars. They present a brand with band, baja and barat to you. They are the Brandwalas.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News 9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News 9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News 9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You are watching Morning Brief at 9 right here on News 9. Let's move on to the next story we are tracking for you this morning. And this story comes by way of the building partnership in the artificial intelligence mode. There are reports by news agency The Information which cites that ChatGPT owner OPENAI as well as Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp parent Meta are in talks with India's Reliance industry owned by Mukesh Ambani over potential partnerships to expand their AI offerings in India. And this, like I told you, as per Tech News website, the Information's report. The possibility being discussed involves a relationship between Reliance Jio and OpenAI to distribute ChatGPT, according to the report, which cited two sources familiar with the matter. OpenAI also discussed with employees cutting the ChatGPT subscription price to as low as several dollars instead of $20 a month. This also according to the report, which added that it is not clear if OpenAI has discussed the idea of price reduction with Reliance as yet. Reliance has discussed setting OpenAI's models to its enterprise customers through an API or application programming interface. The report added, saying that the Mukesh Ambani-led conglomerate also discussed hosting and running OpenAI models locally, so the data of local customers can be kept here in India. In particular, Reliance has discussed running the Meta and OpenAI models in a 3 gigawatt data center that the company is planning to build, which it has said is the largest data center in the world, located in the city of Jamnagar in Gujarat. Now, Meta declined to comment on the information report. OpenAI and Reliance did not immediately respond to requests for comment of the report. Fugitive businessman Mehul CHOKSI, who had escaped India, is now in Belgium along with his wife. Remember, Mehul CHOKSI is accused in the 13,500 crore rupee Punjab National Bank fraud case and is now reportedly in Antwerp in Belgium along with his wife Preeti CHOKSI. According to a report, CHOKSI secured a Belgian residency card using allegedly misleading and fabricated documents to avoid extradition to India. Indian authorities have reportedly asked the Belgian government to begin extradition proceedings, though there is no official confirmation of the same just as yet. CHOKSI, who was previously believed to be in Antigua and Barbuda, allegedly misrepresented his nationality while applying for residency in Belgium and did not disclose his Indian and Antiguan citizenships. The report further claims that he is now planning to move to Switzerland for a medical treatment at a reputed cancer hospital. Remember, CHOKSI and his nephew Nirav Modi are accused of defrauding Punjab National Bank of 13,500 crore rupees through fraudulent letters of undertaking. While Nirav Modi remains in London jail fighting extradition, CHOKSI's movements have been under close watch. Remember, in 2021, CHOKSI mysteriously went missing from Antigua, sparking an international manhunt before he was later found in Dominica and sent back to Antigua. And there's a hot protest, and quite literally at that, in Hyderabad by cab drivers. And these cab drivers belong to all the top players, including Ola, Uber, as well as Rapido Cab. App-based cab drivers have announced a fresh wave of protests in Hyderabad against ride-hailing platforms Ola, Uber and Rapido. Starting today, they will launch a no AC campaign, switching off air conditioners during rides to protest low fares and unfair pricing policies. The Telangana Gig and Platform Workers Union is leading that cab aggregators adopt a uniform ride fare structure similar to state-regulated prepaid taxi fares. They argue that while drivers currently earn 10 to 12 rupees per kilometer, operating costs, especially with AC, these go up to about 16 to 18 rupees per kilometer, making it difficult for them to sustain their livelihoods. This comes after previous protests, including a boycott of airport rides. According to the president of the union, drivers face long waiting hours of up to 4 hours at airports, high platform commissions of 30% and a fare gap of 300 to 400 rupees compared to prepaid taxis. Some drivers are even considering surrendering their vehicles to the Road Transport Authority in protest. BLUESMART co-founder ANMOL JAGGI has squashed reports which had previously said that BLUESMART, the electric vehicle cab company, is selling to Uber. Remember, reports had earlier said that Uber was a front runner in the acquisition of BlueCab, but ANMOL JAGGI ANMOL JAGGI's BSE-listed solar project builder Gensol Engineering is under scrutiny after rating agencies flagged concerns over delayed debt payments, document falsification and liquidity issues. These allegations also affected BLUESMART, the electric ride-hailing startup with promoter cross-holdings in Gensol. But amid speculation, Gensol Group founder, who is also BLUESMART co-founder ANMOL JAGGI, has denied any plans to sell his business. JAGGI addressed financing plans, ongoing investigations and the company's future strategies, saying its debt in BLUESMART is at an all-time low. Remember, Gensol Engineering, a solar project builder, experienced temporary liquidity issues leading to credit rating downgrades by agencies such as ICRA and CARE. These downgrades were partly due to alleged document falsification relating to debt servicing. Now, to address these challenges, Gensol plans to raise 600 crore rupees through foreign currency convertible bonds and promoter contributions. Additionally, a committee with independent external experts has been formed to investigate the document falsification allegations. To stabilize finances, Gensol is phasing out its vehicle leasing ties with BLUESMART. Since April 1st, 2024, no additional vehicles have been leased from Gensol to BLUESMART, and 3,000 out of the 5,500 vehicles are being sold. Moreover, Gensol continues to secure its solar project contracting business, predominantly servicing public sector clients. And after months and months of losses, last week was a good day for the Indian stock markets, where 9 out of the top 10 most valued firms listed in the Indian stock markets have exceeded, or rather their market cap has increased by as much as 3 lakh crore rupees. The exact figure is 3.06 lakh crore rupees. Leading the charge were ICICI Bank and Bharti Airtel, emerging as the biggest gainers in trade last week. The BSE Sensex last week had skyrocketed by 3,000 points, or over 4%, while the NSE Nifty climbed 953 points, marking a strong rally. Among the top gainers, ICICI Bank's market cap jumped by 64,426 crore rupees, while Bharti Airtel saw a surge of over 53,000 crore rupees. HDFC Bank wasn't far behind, adding nearly 49,000 crore rupees to its valuation. Other major players saw major gains too. Reliance Industries, Bajaj Finance, TCS and State Bank of India all witnessed sharp increases in market cap. However, not everyone had a winning week on the Lal Street. ITC was the lone laggard among the top 10, with its market value dipping by 7,570 crore rupees. And come April 1st, get ready to pay more for your dream car. Many car companies like Maruti Suzuki, Mahindra & Mahindra and Hyundai are increasing prices from 1st April. And this, they're saying, is because their costs are going up too. Maruti Suzuki, the market leader, will increase prices by up to 4%. Hyundai Motor India will hike prices by up to 3%, while Mahindra & Mahindra will also raise prices of its SUVs and commercial vehicles by as much as 3%. Tata Motors has said it will increase prices of its passenger vehicles, including electric cars, for the second time this year. Kia India, Honda Cars India, Renault India and BMW will also hike vehicle prices from this coming month. According to experts, car makers usually raise prices twice a year to offset increasing costs. The recent price hikes are aimed at coping with rising raw material and operational costs. While the price hikes may affect demand, many at discount prices in the month of March, potentially looking at offsetting the inventory already piled up before the price hike of April 1st kicks in. The industry is focused on reducing inventory levels, so the impact of these price hikes is expected to be modest. And before we head into a break, let's quickly get a mood check on Dalal Street as markets opened just a few minutes back. Remember, last week, the entire week saw tremendous gains on both the Sensex and the Nifty. We also saw positive action in the small and mid-cap space. And this morning, again, the scene is looking pretty good. Nifty 50 and Sensex are both up about 0.7 percentage point. Sensex now hitting and getting very near to the 77,500 levels. Meanwhile, Nifty 50 seeming comfortable above the 23,500 levels this morning. Volatility has been high at about 13.15, but great action coming this morning from the small cap space. Remember, the small cap index and companies belonging to the small cap size were the ones most affected, and many of these companies had lost as much as 20% or so in the last few months, ever since the September highs that we saw. And the small cap index today surging over 1%, about 1.3% or so in early trade this morning. Similar story coming from the mid cap space. Again, almost a 1% increase in mid caps this morning. The Nifty 50 heat map is looking quite positive and mostly green, barring just a few here and there stocks which don't seem to be doing very well. And the most impacted stock this morning seems to be Mahindra and Mahindra, which is down almost 2% in early trade today. Remember, Mahindra and Mahindra had last week initiated a price rise in its cars, and that's the story we were just telling you about. Mahindra cars as well as its commercial vehicles are likely to go up in prices by about 3% starting 1st April. So markets not reacting favorably to M&M's price hike announcement, it seems, with the stock taking a beating of about 2% in early trade, 1.8% or so right now. Meanwhile, there's been a solid recovery in the IT pack, barring Infosys, which is the only IT company in the red in early trade today. All the other IT stocks which did not have as good a week as many other sectors seem to be having a much better start in trade this morning. Tech Mahindra is up over 1%, Wipro is up exactly a percentage point, whereas TCS is up about half a percentage point or so. Great news coming in on the banking side as well. HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, SBI all seem to be in comfortable territory this morning. Reliance Industries is up about 1.1%, and Bharti Airtel, which had a winning streak last week, is pretty much flat this morning. Well, with that, let's clip into another short break, but we'll be back with global stories on the other side. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
News 9 Indian Tigers and Tigresses. The ultimate hunt for India's future football stars. A vision to make India a footballing powerhouse. The journey of young champions begins. The journey kicked off in Delhi with international football legends and young dreamers.
The winner is first born in the mind, and then you have to have an intent to win. Indians want to win.
8 scouting camps, 50,000 registrations, 10,000 selected, only 32 remain. A true search for India's best. From the heart of India's villages to the grand stage of Europe, their journey is nothing short of extraordinary. With Riespo and our partners in Austria, these young talents will train under the best European coaches, preparing for the global stage.
First of all, he scored a goal.
4 of these players will get the golden opportunity to visit VfB Stuttgart, our official partner, and train under Bundesliga standards. An honor like no other, the chance to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The journey of a lifetime begins March 30th.
$2.5 lakh strong legacy and counting. Join the big league with the XUV 700 with celebratory offers up to ₹75,000.
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people. Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest. Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
What does it take to be the greatest in the world? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sodium DMD Rebar, true inner strength.
We have close to 600 million out of the 1.4 billion in our country who are under the age of 25, and 65% of our population is under 35.
We all know that if you have a choice of pilot at Air India, and one has read the book, the other one has saw the TikTok movie, and the third one has went through a simulator wins, right?
The employable youth is only increasing. We are one of the youngest nations in terms of skilled talent.
There is a mismatch in cities like Bangalore, Chennai, Hyderabad.
How do you impart a pedagogy where students are just not sleeping inside the class, which is typically the case in the best of business schools as well as undergrad colleges in India? Because a lot of what is being taught in the classes, students don't find that applicable in the real world.
I find it extremely difficult to hire people because you don't get right skills.
This and more, streaming on News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's shift focus to the global stories we're tracking for you this Monday morning. Newly appointed Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called a snap election for April 28th, citing the need for a strong mandate to confront what he calls a growing threat from US President Donald Trump. Speaking on Saturday, Carney warned that Trump wants to break us up so America can own us, indicating a sharp deterioration in relations between the two historic allies and major trading partners, US and Canada. More details in this report.
New Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on Sunday called a snap election for April 28th, saying he needed a strong mandate to deal with the threat posed by US President Donald Trump.
We are facing the most significant crisis of our lifetimes because of President Trump's unjustified trade actions and his threats to our sovereignty.
The comments are a sign of how relations between the two longtime allies and major trading partners have deteriorated. Trump has imposed tariffs on Canadian goods and threatened to annex it as its 51st state.
He wants to break us so America can own us. We will not let that happen. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Carney's remarks. Carney, who was sworn in on March 14th, captured the Liberal leadership by persuading party members he was the best person to tackle Trump. The next election was not due until October, but Carney is hoping to capitalize on his party's remarkable recovery in the polls since January. It follows former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's resignation as well as Trump's threats. Earlier this month, Trump delayed a broad 25% tariff on some Canadian goods for 30 days. He has since imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum imports and threatened reciprocal tariffs on additional goods, including Canadian dairy and lumber, starting April 2nd. Canadians are rallying for their country and seeing a resurgence in nationalism.
And when we are attacked, we stand together.
On Saturday, residents gathered in Toronto to denounce U.S. tariffs. Canada-U.S. relations top the list of issues preoccupying residents, according to recent polls. Carney, a former two-time central banker with no previous political or election campaign experience, now has 5 weeks to win over Canadians. On Sunday, Carney proposed cutting the lowest income tax bracket by 1 percentage point. Polls suggest the Liberals, who have been in power since 2015, have slightly pulled ahead of the official opposition Conservatives, who had led a year. The Conservatives have sought to portray Carney as an elitist, who plans to continue the Trudeau-era policy of high government spending.
In a move against his political rivals, US President Donald Trump has revoked security clearances for former Vice President Kamala Harris, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and several other key Democratic figures. The decision is escalation in Washington's deepening political divide. According to critics, this is an effort to sideline opposition voices, while Trump's supporters call it a necessary step for national security.
U.S. President Donald Trump revoked security clearances for former Vice President Kamala Harris and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton on Friday. In a memorandum, Trump said, quote, "I have determined that it is no longer in the national interest for the following individuals to access classified information." The move targets key Democratic figures and other political opponents as tensions in Washington deepen. While the revocations may not have immediate impacts, it is another sign of the growing political rift in Washington as Trump seeks revenge on his perceived enemies. The list of names also include former Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Republican former Representative and Trump critic Liz Cheney. Trump had already revoked the security clearances for Biden, denying the former president to the traditional access to U.S. intelligence. Former U.S. presidents have received intelligence briefings so they can advise incumbent presidents on national security and foreign policy. In 2021, Biden revoked the security clearances for Trump, who was then a former president.
And staying with the US, Elon Musk is taking his campaign to shrink the US federal government to new heights, and this time inside the Pentagon. Musk held an unprecedented top-level meeting with US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, demanding the prosecution of any Defense Department officials leaking what he calls maliciously false information about his visit. Remember, the 80-minute-long meeting comes after reports surfaced that Musk was set to be briefed on secret US war plans for China, something Musk and President Trump both denied later.
Billionaire Elon Musk held an unprecedented top-level meeting at the Pentagon on Friday and called for the prosecution of any Defense Department officials who leak, quote, maliciously false information about his visit. The 80-minute meeting with U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth came after the New York Times reported that Musk would be briefed on secret war plans for China, something Musk and President Donald Trump both denied. At the White House, after the meeting with Musk, Hegseth addressed the report.
We welcomed him today to the Pentagon to talk about DOGE, to talk about efficiencies, to talk about innovations. It was a great informal conversation. The rest of that reporting was fake. There was no war plans. There was no Chinese war plans. There was no secret plans. That's not what we were doing at the Pentagon.
Trump also refuted the report.
I don't want to show that to anybody, but certainly you wouldn't show it to a businessman who is helping us so much. You know, Elon has businesses in China.
Access to a closely guarded military plan would mark a sharp expansion of Musk's role as the Trump advisor who is spearheading efforts to cut U.S. government spending. Musk has several contracts with the Pentagon, and the opportunities for his companies under Trump could drive billions of dollars of revenue to them, including SpaceX. The White House has previously said Musk will recuse himself if any conflicts of interest arise between his business dealings and his role in cutting federal government spending. Later, in a letter to Hegseth, Democratic Senators Elizabeth Warren and Tammy Duckworth demanded details on what information was shared with Musk in the Pentagon meeting and why.
Well, moving to Wall Street. Now, Wall Street remained steady at the end of last week as the S&P and Dow closed nearly unchanged on Friday, recovering from earlier losses. The late session boost came after US President Donald Trump showed potential flexibility on tariffs set to take effect in early April. Investors were further motivated by Trump's announcement that talks will be held with his Chinese counterpart soon, raising hopes that the economic impact of tariffs may not be as severe as previously feared.
U.S. stocks finished higher on Friday, ending well off their lows, with the Dow and S&P closing marginally higher, while the Nasdaq added 0.5%. Comments from President Donald Trump gave markets a lift after he said there will be flexibility on tariffs expected to begin in early April, and that his top trade chief plans to speak with his Chinese counterpart next week. Trump also reiterated his plan to use tariffs to narrow the U.S. trade deficit with China. Logan Capital Management portfolio manager Bill Fitzpatrick says in a challenging environment like this, investors have to move away from mega-cap tech stocks that have soared over the past few years.
I think it is fair to say this is a stock-picking market, and I think the lesson for investors today, focus on diversification. Leadership was very narrow the last couple of years. And I think now is a pretty good example of, why you maintain diversification, why you're in value stocks, why you're in international equities. And that discipline is being rewarded year to date, and we suspect that will continue.
Stocks on the move included FedEx, which slid about 6.5% after the package delivery firm cut its revenue forecasts, citing continued weakness and uncertainty in the U.S. industrial economy. Shares of Nike lost about 5.5% after the sports apparel maker projected a sharper decline in fourth quarter revenue than analysts had anticipated. And Boeing rose 3% after Trump awarded the plane maker a contract to build the U.S. Air Force's most sophisticated fighter jet, beating out rival Lockheed Martin, shares of which fell nearly 6%.
And as trade tensions between the US and China continue, listen into what the US president had to say regarding his plans to speak with Chinese President Xi Jinping.
I'll be speaking to President Xi. I have a great relationship with him. We're going to have a very good relationship. But we have a $1 trillion deficit because of Biden with President Xi. More than that. I mean, I've heard $1.2 trillion. We have a deficit. And I've explained that to President Xi. We also have a problem where he's allowing fentanyl to be sent into Mexico and then cross the border and, killing. I think the number is much higher than the 125, 115 that I think it's closer to 300,000 people a year. And so that's a problem. But they have a tremendous surplus against the United States, so we don't want that. Oh boy, he'd be in trouble.
Is there any way to know?
Well, he's a loser, And instead of taking it properly, they said, oh, he changed it. I don't change, but the word flexibility is an important word. Sometimes there's flexibility, so there'll be flexibility. But basically, it's reciprocal, so that if China is charging us 50% or 30% or 20%, and I don't mean China, I mean anybody.
And even as the tariff trade war between US and China heats up, Beijing, meanwhile, hosted a major business forum bringing together international executives and politicians as China looks to attract foreign investment amid rising geopolitical tensions. With fresh US tariffs posing new challenges, Chinese leaders are also working to boost domestic consumption. Among the high-profile attendees were Apple's Tim Cook, Qualcomm's Cristiano Amon, AstraZeneca's Pascal Soriot and Saudi Aramco's Amin Nasser. Chinese Premier Li Qiang addressed the China Development Forum, calling for open markets to tackle global uncertainty. While fewer American CEOs attended this year due to strained US-China relations, Li met with US Senator Steve Dennis and several business leaders to discuss China's investment climate. And Nike, the world's largest sportswear maker, is facing steeper sales, which has resulted in their shares dropping. Despite beating expectations in its latest quarter, the company's shares dropped 5% after its CFO predicted a steeper than expected drop in revenue this quarter. The company's new CEO, Elliott Hill, has been leading a turnaround effort since October, focusing on new shoe launches and rebuilding relationships with retailers. However, the company faces challenges in China where demand is weak due to economic concerns. Take a look.
The world's biggest sportswear maker sees a rocky road ahead. Nike is forecasting a steeper drop in its revenue for the current quarter than analysts expected, leading shares to drop 5% in after-hours trade on Thursday. Earlier in the day, Nike posted results from December to February, its fiscal third quarter. They beat expectations thanks in part to a promising consumer response to new shoe launches. Shares rose immediately following that. But later, they reversed course after Nike CFO Matthew Friend said he predicts a steeper than expected drop this quarter. Analysts had predicted a 12% tumble, but he foresaw something close to the mid-teens. New CEO Elliott Hill fast-tracked new shoes that have performed well enough to give Nike some breathing room after several quarters of weak demand. He's been leading a turnaround since he took over in October, trying to take on trendy rivals like Hoka and On. However, Friend, the CFO, said that this quarter may look bleak as the company discounts old items to clear inventory and continues to rebuild relationships with retailers. Those ties had suffered when the last CEO, John Donahoe, shifted the company's focus to direct-to-consumer sales. While overall third-quarter revenues were down 9% to around $11 billion, in China that number was down 17%, which worried investors. Demand there suffers from concerns over job and wage security and a drawn-out slump in property. He stressed the need to focus on China on the earnings call. CEO Hill also outlined what he called Nike's Win Now strategy. The five-pillared plan includes building out a broad swath of new shoe products and boosting its ground game in 5 key cities: Los Angeles, New York, and London, and 2 of China's biggest cities, Beijing and Shanghai.
Focus now. Namibia's newly elected first female president, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, has vowed to tackle the country's high unemployment rates. Speaking at her inauguration ceremony, the country's president pledged to boost investment and diversity in Namibia's economy. She further has plans to increase investment in infrastructure and agriculture to promote economic growth and improve living standards in the country. Take a look.
Raise your right hand and
Namibia's newly elected president, Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, pledged to tackle high unemployment rates as she took office on Friday. Speaking at the inauguration ceremony, Namibia's first female president promised to boost investment and diversify the country's resource-focused economy.
Increase investment in the development of infrastructures to open investment opportunities, enhance economic productivity, promote economic growth, and improve the quality of life of our people.
Namibia has seen relatively strong economic growth in recent years, primarily due to investments in oil, gas, and green hydrogen. However, World Bank data indicates that the nation ranks second highest globally for income inequality.
We are going to increase investment in the agricultural sector to increase output and meet domestic food requirements. As our founding president taught us, people who cannot feed themselves, they will never be respected.
Nandi-Ndaitwah's SWAPO party has governed the nation of around 3 million people for more than 3 decades. Though it secured victory in both the presidential and parliamentary elections in November, SWAPO's support has fallen in the last decade. Dissatisfaction with high unemployment, inequality, and corruption allegations saw the party secure 57% of the vote in November's presidential race, compared to 87% in the 2014 election. Last month, Namibia's Supreme Court dismissed a challenge against the presidential election brought by opposition parties. Their case had claimed the vote was flawed and potentially invalid due to an extension of voting for several days, among other issues.
Tragedy struck in Kyiv, Ukraine, after a Russian drone attack killed a 5-year-old child and at least 2 others. The attack, which Ukrainian officials called massive, targeted several parts of the country, with Russia launching 147 drones. Ukraine's Air Force reported that 97 drones were destroyed while 25 failed to reach their targets. The strikes came just after, in fact hours before, planned talks in Saudi Arabia aimed at ending the 3-year-old war. Diplomatic efforts are intensifying, with experts and officials from Ukraine and the US and Russia set to discuss shipping safety in the Black Sea. And before we close the show, let's toss over to an interview that TV9 Network's auto editor Nand Kumar Nair had with Maruti Suzuki's Partho Banerjee. Nand Kumar began by asking Partho Banerjee about the launch of e-Vitara and Maruti Suzuki's plans for electric vehicles. We leave you with that interview.
What is your electric strategy, if I may ask?
what is the thing that, Maruti Suzuki with this electric e-Vitara is going to start? What is the biggest change that was there in your mind when you were developing the car and the strategy?
I think fundamentally we have to first understand that today there are many electric vehicles in the market.
Absolutely.
But if you see the penetration of the electric vehicle of the total industry sale is not growing. Calendar year 23 it was 2.3%, calendar year 24 it was just 2.4%.
Valid.
Plenty of new models are coming. I think price corrections are happening. Now fundamental question is why the penetration is not increasing? There are three reasons. First is the range of the product, which is a major concern for the customers, because some of the products which came into the market, what was claimed vis-a-vis what was actually the customer experience, there was a huge gap. So the customer has an apprehension. Second important thing which comes is the public infrastructure. By the way, 95% of the customers who have the electric vehicle today, as per our survey, they are charging the vehicle at home. They are not using the public infrastructure. No. But at the end of the day, if you are not installing the fast chargers, you are not giving him that peace of mind. So it's not going to be a primary car. Till the time you don't make the electric vehicle as your primary car, your car is. And third point, which is also equally important, is the after-sale service. I will be getting the service if I go to a place where there is nothing. So as a primary car, there is a challenge. So mostly the customers who are buying this car today, additional car buyers are having the maximum number of percentage who are going for it. Now in case of Maruti, we are not going to launch a product. We are going to launch an ecosystem.
Yeah, very, very nicely put. That's what we believe also. That's what people wait for.
So what we are planning to do is this, that let us try to mitigate all these pain points of the customers. And if then we launch the product, the customer will be having the confidence. So how we are going to do it? A, we have announced that the vehicle which we are going to launch will have a range of 500 kilometers. And we have tested it from minus 30 degrees centigrade to 60 degrees centigrade. Snow to sand was the thing which we said. The vehicle has been tested and all conditions, fire test, going through deep water, pin test, the battery has passed with flying colors. So we are very confident that this vehicle will give 500 kilometers. Coming to the giving that peace of mind to the customer with regard to the public charging infrastructure, we are going to start in the top 100 cities. Why 100 cities? It almost covers 97% of the sales which happens today of the Nexa vehicles.
Okay.
So in these cities, in approximately a distance of 5 to 10 kilometers, we are going to put the fast charger. So there will be a huge grid which will be there for the customer within the city. And third important thing, we are going to be having after-sale service in 1,000 cities. And there we will have an emergency charging facility also, just to ensure the customer ki if you are buying the Maruti vehicle, rest be assured you are not going to face any problem. So in order to do this, we started a campaign, E for Me. Now the question is, what is this E for Me? So Nandakumarji, if you carefully see the E, which is the part of the e-Vitara, it is not an E, it has got two E's. One small e and another big E. Now the small e is the product, the e-Vitara, our ecosystem which we are creating. And what is the big E? The big E is the mother planet Earth. We feel that it could be a small sort of a initiative from our side, that if we all start thinking for the sustainability for the planet Earth, we can contribute it and we can reduce the carbon footprint.
Fabulous. Sir, all these challenges that you're going to mitigate, range anxiety, as you said, 500 kilometer is fantastic. That can be easily taken care, and the battery is already poor. But as far as infrastructure is concerned, is it going to be done in a phased manner? Because the numbers that we are talking about are big numbers. So the whole infrastructure that is there in your mind, is it going to be in a phased manner? Is it going to take time? Is there any time period that is there in your mind?
See, we believe one thing. 40 years back also, when Maruti came in India, if you remember, Nand Kumarji, we were not in a hurry to sell the car. We were very much that time also focusing on creating the infrastructure. And if you would remember that we created a campaign that we have a service center in Ladakh also. The point which we were trying to make was this, that we want to give the services to our customer. So I can assure you, by the time when we come, we start selling the product in the market, we will have the ecosystem in place.
News 9 Indian